Good morning, folks. And today we're going to talk about not only the Bill of Rights, which will be later on, but we're going to talk about the Declaration of Independence. I might even read the Declaration of Independence. Starting. And I'll even read it to you. In Congress, July 4th, 1776, the unanimous Declaration of the 13 United States of America, when in course of human events, it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bands which have connected them with another, and to assume among the powers of the earth the separate and equal station to which the laws of nature and of nature's God entitled them. A decent respect to the opinions of mankind requires that they should declare the causes which impel them to the separation. We hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal, and that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unaliened rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, driving their just powers from the consent of the governed, that whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or to abolish it, and to institute new government, laying its foundation on such principles and organizing its powers in such form as to them shall seem most likely to affect their safety and happiness. Pertinence, indeed, will dictate that governments long established should not be changed for light and transient causes. And accordingly, all experience hath shewn that mankind are more disposed to suffer, while evils are sufferable, than to the right themselves by abolishing the forms to which they are accustomed. But when a long train of abuses and unsuppressions pursuing invariable the same object evinces a design to reduce them under absolute despotism, I think. It is their right, it is their duty to throw off such government and provide new guards for their future security. Such has been the patient sufferance of these colonies, and such is now the necessity which constrains them to alter their former systems of government. The history of the present King of Britain is a history of repeated injuries and usurpations, all having indirect object, the establishment of an absolute tyranny over these states. To prove this, let facts be submitted to a candid world. He refused his assent to laws, the most wholesome and necessary for the public good. He has forbidden his governors to pass laws of immediate and pressing importance, unless suspended in their operation till his assent should be obtained. And when so suspended, he has utterly neglected to attend to them. He has refused to pass other laws for the accommodation of large districts of people, unless those people are relinquished to the right of representation in the legislature, a right insurmountable to them and formidable to tyrants only. He has called together legislative bodies at places unusual, uncomfortable, and distant from the depository of their public records, for the sole purpose of fatiguing them into compliance with his measures. He has dissolved representative houses repeatedly for opposing with manly firmness of his invasions of the rights of the people. He has refused for a long time, under such dissolutions, to cause others to be elected, whereby the legislative powers, incapable of annihilation, have returned to the people at large for their exercise, the state remaining, in the meantime, exposed to all the dangers of invasion from without and convulsions within. He has endeavored to prevent the population of these states, for that purpose obstructing the laws of naturalization of foreigners, refusing to pass others to encourage their migrations hither and raise the conditions of new appropriations of lands. He has obstructed the administration of justice by refusing his assent to laws for establishing judiciary powers. He made judges dependent on his will alone for the tenure of their offices and among the payment of their salaries. He has erected a multitude of new offices and sent hither swarms of officers to harass our people and eat out their substances. He has kept among us, in times of peace, standing armies without the consent of our legislators. He has affected to render the military independent of and superior to the civil power. He has combined with others to subject the jurisdiction foreign to our Constitution and unacknowledged by our laws, giving his assent to their acts of pretended legislation. For quarantining large bodies of armed troops among us, for protecting them by mock trial, for punishment for any murders which they should commit on inhabitants of these states, for cutting off our trade with all parts of the world, for imposing taxes on us without our consent, for depriving us in many cases of the benefit of trial by jury. For transporting us beyond seas to be tried for pretended offenses. For abolishing a free system of English laws in a neighboring province, establishing therein an arbitrary government and enlarging its boundaries so as to render it at once an example and fit instrument for introducing the same absolute rule into these colonies. For taking away our charters, abolishing our most valuable laws, and altering fundamentally the forms of our government. For suspending our own legislators and declaring themselves invested with power to legislate for us in all causes whatsoever. He has plundered our seas, ravaged our coast, burnt our towns, and destroyed the lives of our people. He is at times transporting large armies of foreign mercenaries to complete the works of death, dissolution, and tyranny already begun with circumstances of cruelty and perfidy scarcely paralleled in the most barbarous ages and entirely unworthy the head of a civilized nation. He has constrained our fellow citizens taken captive on the high seas to bear arms against their country, to begin the executioners of their friends and brethren, or to fallen themselves by their hands. He has excited domestic insurrections among us, and has endeavored to bring on the inhabitants of our frontiers the merciless Indian savages, whose known rule of warfare is an undistinguished destruction of all ages, sexes, and conditions. In every stage of these oppressions, we have petitioned for redress in the most humble terms. Our repeated petitions have been answered only by repeated injury. A prince whose chartered and thus marked by every act which may define a tyrant is unfit to be the ruler of the free people. Nor have we been wanting to intentions to our British brethren. We have warned them from time to time attempts for their legislature to extend an unwarranted jurisdiction over us. We have reminded them of the circumstances of our emigration and settlement here. We have appealed to them, and we have appealed to their just and magnanimity. That's a hard word to pronounce. And we have conjured them by the ties of our common kindred to disavow these usurpations, which would inevitably interrupt our connections and correspondence. They, too, have been deaf to the voice of justice and of consanguinity. Kind of hard to pronounce that one, too. Sorry. We must, therefore, acquiesce, I can't pronounce that one, in the necessity which denounces our separation, and hold them as we hold the rest of mankind, enemies in war, and peace friends. We therefore, representative of the United States of America and General Congress, assemble, appealing to the Supreme Judge of the world for the recruited of our intentions do in the name and by the authority of the good people of these colonies solemnly publish and declare that these united colonies are, and the right ought to be, free and independent states, that they are absolved from the allegiance to the British Crown, and that all political connection between them and the state of Great Britain is and ought to be totally dissolved, and that as free and independent states they have full power and levy war, concluded peace, contract alliances, established commerce, and to do all other acts and things which independent states may have right to do. And for the support of this declaration, with the firm reliance on the protection of divine providence, we mutually pledge to each other. We pledge to each other our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor. That there is the Declaration of Independence. Signed, everyone who is willing to face consequences against the British. 56 people signed the Declaration of Independence. You can look it up yourselves. I mean, it was Benjamin Franklin even signed it. Thomas Jefferson, John Hancock, John Adams, Benjamin Harrison V. I mean, it's a very long line of people who signed it. I mean, if you really want to get into specifics, just type in and you'll read the whole thing. Some of those words I might have pronounced might have been a little harder than what I thought. I mean, I tried to pronounce them correctly. I mean, I apologize about that. Hit the like button and subscribe. Hit the bell for notifications. I mean, that's literally what this is like. Now, here's a good question. If Benedict Arnold signed that, if the traitors Benedict Arnold signed the Declaration of Independence, do you really think do you think this Declaration of Independence would still be even logical today? Do you think liberals would really care for the Declaration of Independence? That's a good question. That's a good what if. I mean, I still think it would be legit because we're a free country. We're no longer owned by Britain. And another thing to think about, if we were still under British rule, do you think, for all of you sports fanatics out there, do you think the sports that we created here in America, do you think we would still have those sports? Do you think we would have football? Do you think we would have volleyball? Do you think we would have any of those sports right now? Do you think we would have basketball? Just asking. Do you think we would have any of those sports? That's just a simple question to ask yourselves. Do you think we have any of those sports under British rule? One simple question to ask yourself. Now tonight, I'll read a small portion. I'm going to kind of compare what Thomas Jefferson tried to do with the Constitution and the Bill of Rights. And I want you to tell me tonight, and we'll figure this out together. Kind of guess. And with that being said, I'm out of here. Peace.